that Doug Peterson could go in there and say, this is on me. This was an awful year, okay? We're going to make the necessary changes, and we're going to move forward. And if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, I give him an opportunity to do that because he's already shown me he could get the job done. They've been to the playoffs the previous 3 years. They won a Super Bowl 3 years ago. This is the first time he's missed the playoffs in 4 years, all right? And most of it, according to Max, was because of the play of Carson Wentz, not the coaching of Doug Peterson. So Doug Peterson had a very bad and embarrassing week. It was obviously a very bad season, but according to Max, it was because of Carson Wentz, his hard-headedness, his unwillingness to listen, his unwillingness to be coachable, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if all of that is true, are we going to sit here with a straight face and say that a Super Bowl champion, 3 years removed from being a Super Bowl champion and going to the playoffs the last 3 years, and this is the first time he's missed the playoffs in 4 years, we're going to just sit up there and say, you know what? We don't want you. Goodbye. Get the hell up out of here. We want nothing to do with you. I think that's a bit excessive. I don't think Doug Peterson deserves that. I think he deserves the opportunity to come back and to make amends for an obvious mishap that transpired this weekend.
Well, you're pointing out the fact that Doug Peterson's an excellent coach. I agree. I think Doug Peterson can really coach. I think Carson Wentz was the issue, and you saw no matter any other quarterback that Peterson inserted and just ran his offense, whatever he wanted to do, did very well. That's different than saying he should remain in this job. That's a different thing. Howie Roseman, first of all, let's start with the GM, hasn't drafted a Pro Bowler in 5 years. 5 years. And yet Peterson was on board with tanking, in my opinion, in order to move from 9 to 6. But he passed up on DK Metcalf, and he passed up on better receivers for worse receivers. He's better off drafting 9 than 6. Maybe a good player will fall to him, and he doesn't have to choose one of choose a lesser player instead.
So he's excellent, but should still be fired.
Roseman has not done the job. And Peterson, based on what he did yesterday, you're not going to keep a locker room next year. You listen to Jason Kelsey.
Please.
It's the December 19th media availability. Google it. I highly recommend it. It's worth your time. Listen to what Jason Kelsey says. If I'm Jeffrey Lurie, I have to send a message to the locker room. Even if the coach and the GM don't get it, I do. You gotta tear this down and start again. You're right about your assessment of Peterson being a good coach. I agree with that. Not the right coach for this job right now.
Man, this is such a horrible conversation. Your resume determines whether you keep a job or not. Yes. And for the most part, Doug Peterson's resume in the last 4 years is as good as anybody's in the league. When you start having a conversation about what coaches should go and not go. We talked about a hobbled team last year making the playoffs in the last week of the season, beating the Dallas Cowboys. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. And I know how important coaching is in the NFL. I know how important coaching is in college football. But Nick Saban ain't the greatest coach of all time in football without the players. Go look at the list of names that he had the opportunity to coach. This is not rocket science. Doug Peterson is a good coach, had a bad year. He can get the locker room back because he won a Super Bowl with a lot of those guys that were in the locker room. And they'll be fine moving forward if they get the players and surround him with people that can make plays. Bottom line, that's what he's done for the majority of his time in Philly. So having a conversation based off this year and the locker room and all the things that transpired with Carson Wentz. And two, another thing people fail to mention when they throw that point out there, half of this damn locker room going to be gone anyway. It's about to be a redo anyway of this football team. So I get it. I understand it. I'm with you, Max. If there is no shadow of a doubt that Doug Peterson can't come back and get this locker room and get guys bought in and win, you got to move on if players ain't going to follow the coach. But I don't think that's the case. I really don't think that's the case because Doug Peterson can go in front of a team and say, guys, look what we've done. Look what we've accomplished. Look what I've been able to accomplish as a head coach. Believe in me, and we can move forward and be a good football team.
And by the way, Molly, Max, Marcus, are we absolutely positively sure that Jeffrey Lurie did not sign off on this? We don't know that.
No, Yeah, like
you don't know that.
man.
Or that, yeah, if Doug Peterson was given
Good
marching
point.
orders,
Doug
that's
Peterson
something else.
owned it, but
That's a possibility.
Yeah, he ain't going to tell on his owner.
All right, we'll see. Here's what I do know. If it was the Steelers,
It
your
seems like his
Steelers team, or
hands were
Marcus,
tied
your
about Carson Wentz
Cowboys
for a while.
Let's hear from Molly.
that
Max.
got jobbed by Philly, you'd both be crying. The 76ers, and now you're acting like it's fine that Philly just mailed it in. And it's not okay. It is disrespecting the game, Stephen A.
Well, first of all, thank you, Molly. If you want to join this debate, I'm more than happy to address you. I am not being hypocritical.
It's just
hold on.
counterpoint.
Listen, you brought up a point. I'm answering you, Molly. I'm coming right at you. This is me talking to Molly, the lovely Molly Cameron Rose. You are wrong because I am not hypocritical, not in the slightest. When me talking about Max tanking, I'm not saying it's all right what Philadelphia did. I am saying I don't want to hear from Joe Judge about it. I didn't sit up there and say it's okay for Philadelphia to do what they did. I'm saying Joe Judge talking about it after you enter the game, losing 3 straight.
Joe Judge is talking about the integrity of the game.
You. That's
Fighting
what
for
you,
what's
Joe Judge.
his. Yeah,
You
Max,
should
get in
complain,
here.
but not him.
And y'all let me know when I can go.
Go ahead.
That last comment by you, Max, the integrity of the game. What is that? Tell me what that is in this season. Because look, Joe Judge is only talking about this because it's the Eagles. If it was the Ravens or the Chiefs or the Browns or anybody else outside of that division, Joe Judge wouldn't have had that same energy towards it because it was about them winning to get in the playoffs. That's the bottom line. He wouldn't have said nothing about it if another team did it. And integrity of the game, this is the part that's driving me crazy. The integrity of the game piece of it. Because to me, like the integrity of the game, when you look at this season in totality, was already in flux. When you start thinking about the things that transpired. Denver played a week without a quarterback. Onay was so important. Wouldn't the NFL just say, hey, we're not going to allow this game to be played? When we had all of the COVID protocol stuff with the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens, and people were talking about canceling the game. Max, you said on this show before the season started and said the NFL ain't going to be able to finish. They shouldn't even be playing because of the integrity of the game. So Joe Judge comes up and says the integrity of the game is under attack because Doug Peterson plays Sudfeld is a bit much, Max. That's a bit much for Joe Judge to say the integrity of the game was compromised when Carson Wentz wasn't even dressed out for the game.
You and I can disagree about stuff, and we often do. But this is the weakest point I've heard you argue. Are you actually saying that because we're in a pandemic and we have to accept things aren't going to be perfect, that a coach making a decision like that is okay? Let me be very clear what I mean about integrity of the game. That game was flexed to prime time because it had playoff implications. The Eagles had a chance to play spoiler to Washington. The team they were playing, it's not just because I'm a Giants fan. If this were the Jets and it was the last week of the season and they had a chance to get Trevor Lawrence and all hope was lost and it had no playoff implications, I get it. Then you and I be on the same side. Don't tell me about that. Of course you want to get the number 1 pick. What do they have to play for? They're giving a guy, look, this wasn't that. They were in the game in the 4th quarter. I'm not even talking about going for it on 4th down and not kicking a field goal. I say go for it. Don't worry about the negative outcome. I'm talking about taking out your only chance to win the game for some BS excuse that you want to give the 3rd stringer a look when in fact what you need to do is give the 2nd stringer more of a look because he's the starter next year. Marcus, the coach making that decision is what Joe Judge was talking about. Joe Judge brought up the fact that people had to make all these sacrifices in the pandemic, including understanding things won't be perfect. The team may not play with a quarterback. Another team get their schedule messed with. All that stuff. The point is you can't help that. Those are the things you have to do. So the least we can ask of coaches is that they remain competitive when something is on the line for the NFL. That's the integrity of the game.
How do you think Joe Judge can decipher that? Like, I understand what you're saying. That's all for Philly to take care of. That's the point. The point is Joe Judge don't need to be speaking on that. That's what the bottom line is. When you start talking about integrity, we can have a discussion. We can have it. I said it too, Stephen A, about Doug Peterson, and he wasn't trying to win a damn game. We could kill, if y'all want to turn this into a kill Doug Peterson for his decision making.
Why can't he say anything if it's wrong? Why can't he speak up if it's wrong? And you're saying it's wrong, and it is disrespecting the game. Why can't Joe Judge voice that?
Molly, Joe Judge is speaking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Think about his incentive for the Philadelphia Eagles winning. All right? I made my point saying he wouldn't have commented on this if it didn't have anything to do with, if it had